Gordon, Matthew, I'm going to begin with you, Gordon. Now, you've been in the traditional media for a long time, and you've, 40 years or so. Media planning and buying, how is it working? Is it working?
Well, the bottom line is, Jose, it's not actually working. Increasingly, I'm kind of looking at it as the investment of advertising funds into a black hole in procurement cyberspace. It's a little bit like having an ugly child. You know it's ugly, your wife knows it's ugly, but you don't want to raise the topic over the dinner table. But the bottom line is simply that there are three possible outcomes in any campaign. It worked, it didn't work, and I don't know. And unfortunately, there's a staggeringly high number of advertisers in this country who are in the latter category. You cannot measure the success of a campaign by the size of your discount.
So, Matthew, what do we do if that is the case?
So I think one of the things that digital's had since its inception is this idea of measurement and an action that comes for every single placement that you make. And what we're doing at Native Media is really starting to apply that digital thinking to every single media channel. So having a look at what you get back, what the objective is, and how that helps at the end of the day achieve the client's objectives.
If I could just comment on that, I mean, working at Native Media now is a new experience for me, but what is exciting to me is not so much that you can measure stuff with digital, but that you actually want to. It speaks to a kind of confidence in the digital landscape, which is absent from traditional media.
Okay, so if you can measure it, so what is the new approach? Other than buying more and more cheap media, what is the approach given all these tools?
Yeah, look, you've got to think of it perhaps, try and visualize it as a ripple effect. If you drop a stone in a pond, what do you get? You get concentric circles that radiate outwards until they touch something, a stone, a tree, a boat, whatever the case is. Now, don't think stone, think brand. If I drop a brand in the pond, what happens? What we've been doing for 40 years is been measuring the biggest thing that it touches, not the first thing. We need to shift the debate from the size of the audience to the proximity of the experience. Call it touch point, call it affinity-based planning, but how close is that medium to me as an individual and part of my life?
So I'm just going to ask a question here in terms of, is it the chicken or the egg thing? I mean, if I'm a new brand and I'm not sure where I'm aiming at, surely I want to cast the net wide as possible in a traditional sense, and then get feedback, and then be able to start mapping things out.
Problem is chickens don't have budgets. So everything costs, So the chicken is blissfully unaware of the cost of crossing the road, including the probability of being run over. So we work with budgets. So what is a better way to look at the efficacy of your budget? Surely it's the outcome of your campaign against the metric rather than the size of your discount.
So what should media planners do when it comes to working with buyers and planners? The media owners, that is.
Well, media owners, you've got to transform yourself and think of it like a Stargate, okay? At the moment, what media owners are trying to do is sell bigger audiences at lower and lower prices. But I'm not interested in media owners or a medium as a destination where I can hang an ad or flight a commercial. I want that media owner to be a portal. I want to go through that portal into a community. And when I'm in that community, I want to look at that audience from a holistic point of view. So right now, we're measuring newspapers when we should be measuring reading behavior. We should be measuring listening behavior, not radio stations. We should be measuring viewing behavior, not trying to estimate the size of TV.
So I understand these are as ideas, and a Stargate is a great metaphor, but how do you get into the Stargate? Where's the best point of entry? I mean, where do you even start?
Small is better than big. It's got to be focused. You can't be big and focused. So give up some of the size and increase the focus. You increase the focus, you increase the probability of a response up to the digital space where the probability of response is measured on an individual basis, not even on a community basis.
And I think if you have a look at the fragmented media landscape, it's a perfect opportunity to do that. All of these different fragments of passionate small communities we can tap into, whether it's a niche magazine title or a streaming radio station. There's something there that we can use that'll create a bigger impact with our audience.
And don't look at the fragments. Look at the fragments as a jigsaw puzzle. Put the fragments together. They are actually part of a puzzle.
So how will programmatic buying change over time?
So programmatic buying is essentially just an automated way of selecting the best place to place an ad. the key differentiator here is it's done on a real-time basis. And we know this quite well in a digital context, but what we're going to start seeing more of is that expanding to traditional channels like TV and radio, where that real-time process of understanding who is watching TV right now, what are they interested in, which ad should be served. And I think that's going to change the landscape dramatically.
Yeah, and it should go beyond the purchase price. So programmatic planning doesn't just talk to price and audience, it talks to the actual message itself. So I think programmatic planning at its best creates the correct audience at the correct price, but also the correct piece of content.
How do we reach the audience that you're talking about effectively in a digital age?
I think we've maybe mentioned it a couple of times, but the key thing for me is moving away from a platform or environment-based planning where you're trying to show a car commercial during a Top Gear program and start moving towards an audience-focused planning, which is really about understanding that person that wants to buy a car and speaking to them at a different point. It doesn't really matter that they happen to be watching Top Gear at that moment. So starting with that and having a look at each of those mediums and layering it up from there, we'll be able to do that.
So what's the one thing that you'd like to say to the people here at the digital conference that you'd like to leave them with today, just as a parting thought?
There's no media platform called electricity, so stop calling yourself digital. It's that simple. There is audiences, there's creative content, there's consumption behavior, and there's outcomes. That's the end of the equation. We don't need fractions.
Matthew?
For me, it's really about if you want to innovate, you have to change. And for me, the whole way that traditional media is planned and bought needs to change dramatically. And I think that's something that we want to start pioneering.
Well, Gordon, Matthew, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.